Good morning and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Jennifer and I love to make sewing videos. For this week, I plan to make a 1940s inspired pair of trousers and I'm really excited. I've been wanting some. I love the silhouette of the trousers in that era. So let me show you the pattern that I'll be using for this project. So this is the pattern that I'll be using. It is McCall's 7804 and there are three versions on the front of this envelope, but it's the same pair of pants. It's only one version that's in the pattern. It's just showing you different ways that you can style it, which I appreciate, and they look fabulous. I can't wait to look as fabulous as them. This is the fabric that I will be using for this project, and it is 100% wool Gabardine. Gabardine. I don't know how to pronounce it, but it's basically a lightweight wool suiting. I got it from the store Stone Mountain and Daughter Fabrics online, and it is dead stock, unfortunately, so it's not reorderable. But it is nice to buy something that was already existing. It's just a little bit nerve-wracking because I don't want to mess up, also because it was pretty expensive. And to prepare this fabric to be sewn, I don't know if this is the right way, but this is what I did. I soaked my fabric in cold water and some Woolite for 25 minutes, and then I air dried it on the floor. I know, kind of gross, but I sweep and I mop, okay? But I put the towels on the floor and then the fabric on top. I squeeze the excess water out and then I let the fabric dry overnight. But it worked out in the end. I could have gotten it dry cleaned as well, but we're trying to save money over here, okay? So I'm the dry cleaner, but yeah, be careful. Always do like a little test fabric and such, but it worked out for me, so can't complain. With all of that being said, I am ready to sew, but before I jump into that, let me show you the mock-up. Okay, I don't know how else to film this because I can't get my pants and myself on screen, but I have the wearable mock-up on right now and I want to talk about it with y'all. So for a moment, you're just gonna see my pants. Hi Zoey. For a moment, you're just gonna see my pants so I can explain the fit. Hello, I'm working. Is anyone else's dog really needy and just want you 24/7? Because she is. Okay, let me talk about the pants now. Gosh, your fur is everywhere. Yeah, sorry. I know, you're gonna have to move. Come on, over there, right there, just for a minute. Okay, here are the trousers, and I made this from linen that I thrifted for $5, so this fabric is a steal. But yeah, I basically sewed up the trousers to see if I need to do any alterations, and I like the fit. I don't think I have that many notes on the leg portion. But for the waist, I did add 1/4 of an inch. But yeah, I think that would give me more space because yes, I can zip it up and such, but as soon as I sit down, it's just gonna add like pressure to here. So I don't want that. And I'm gonna be wearing this in class, so I'm gonna be sitting down a lot. So yeah, I want that extra space. Zoey's right here if you see her little paws, but I guess I'll come down now and talk to y'all. But I did all the alterations on my tracing for the pattern and I'm basically ready to jump into this project. So with that being said, let's start with ironing this fabric. Before I get started with ironing the fabric, I do want to put on some music. So I'm gonna listen to Wish by The Cure, and I love this album so much. I just love the blend of his vocals and the guitar. I'm a sucker for a good guitar, okay? That's why I love Radiohead and Pink Floyd too. But yeah, let's listen to this. The first step is to iron the fabric, and for this I'm using muslin to protect the wool. I am also using a spray bottle since the steamer function on my iron doesn't work. And the next step is to cut out the pattern pieces, and you'll see Zoey in a moment here. Zoey, excuse me. You're interested, that's why. Get your paw off of it. No, not today. Go away, please. Good morning! It is day 2 of sewing, and yesterday I finished cutting out all the pattern pieces. I've yet to cut the belt loops, but I will do that at the very end because I just don't have enough table space. But let me show you what I'll be using to seam bind the edges. Hold on. So I'm going to be using this 100% linen seam binding that I got on Sewing Arts Online. And it's really beautiful and super soft, which is what I wanted because these seams are going to touch my skin. I will not be lining these trousers as well, so I wanted that extra security. And so what I'll be doing right now is stay stitching the waistline and the curved pieces, and then I'll be adding this seam binding. But before I get started, I'm gonna put on some music. This is the album that I'm gonna put on right now, and it's Thriller by Michael Jackson. I'm sure we all know, but yeah, I really like this album. It makes me want to dance, and it reminds me of the movie 13 Going on 30. But I think I watched that movie when I was 13 myself because it came out in the 2000s. So I felt that in my soul. I also wanted to be 30, flirty, and driving. But anyways, with that being said, I'm gonna put on this album and then get to sewing. To sew these trousers, I'm going to use a size 70-10 needle. The brand I'm using is Oregon, but Schmetz can also work. The first step is to sew a stay stitch on the waistline of these trousers. After that, I began to iron the linen seam binding. For this, I'm using the spray bottle again and ironing directly since it's linen. And I don't iron on dark linens, especially for the main fabric. I'm only doing this because this is the seam binding and it won't be seen. And as I'm ironing, I'm shaping this piece into a curve because this will go in the crotch seam. Once that's ready, I attach the right side of the seam binding to the wrong side of the fabric and pin them together. This is because it will wrap around and then I can do a nice straight stitch on the right side. Then I sew a straight stitch to sew the seam binding in place, and I used a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. After the seam binding is sewn on, I press the edge towards the seam so that I can proceed to wrap it around the unfinished seam. And to finish this off, I sewed a straight stitch 1/8 of an inch away from the edge of the seam binding's edge. I repeated those steps for the other seams on the pant legs, and for the inner leg seam, I folded the excess seam binding that was on the top edge inwards, and I did this because I wanted the seams to stay separate. This did add bulk, unfortunately, but in my head, this would make altering this garment in the future easier because I wouldn't need to seam rip a joined seam, but it really depends what you prioritize. This could definitely be a joined seam instead. But yeah, just letting y'all know my thought process here. Good morning, it's day 3 of sewing, and it's day 3 for y'all, but it's actually been a month since I've last filmed, and I'll tell y'all why, but I've been pretty busy with school. I recently got accepted into nursing school, and I'm going to start that in the spring, and I have 2 more years of my education to go. So that's what I've been working on in the background, and I'm pretty busy with studying and getting ready for admissions and such. But yeah, I'm really grateful and happy that I get this opportunity to go to school and continue my education, especially in something that is very fulfilling for me. And so circling back to my YouTube channel, that's why I don't get to dedicate as much time as I'd like to sewing and posting on YouTube. But I think it's okay, like, even though I don't get to be consistent, and also I can't really afford fabric right now because of college expenses, I still want to show up when I can, where I can, because I am really passionate about sewing as well. So yeah, we'll see how this goes, but that is one of the biggest reasons I'm not consistent, and I don't think I will be for a while right now. So with that being said, I'm gonna jump back into this project and see how far I get. I would love to have these trousers to wear to school because they are 100% wool and they'll be really comfortable for the winter time. So yeah, on that note, let's get back to sewing. I did leave off on sewing all the bindings, so that's already done with, and now it's time to finally start sewing the thing. So let's do it. Gotta put on some music. You thought I wasn't gonna put on a record, right? You're wrong. No. Okay, let me see. I'm gonna listen to some Gabardine. Zoey's gonna drink some water. Okay, so right now I'm gonna put on some Waistband because they're really groovy and I want something that is gonna keep me in a good mood, so let's put this on. I started off by pinning the darts on the back. Also, you may notice some tailor's tacks here. I'm using these thread markings because the chalk that I use disappears with steam, and since I'm going to be ironing a lot, I want to keep track of where the markings are. After that, I pinned the front pleats on the trousers, and following that, I sewed the back darts using a straight stitch and I tied off the ends. For the front pleats, I sewed a straight stitch and back stitched at the ends. Once that was done, I pressed the front pleats towards the center and also the back darts towards the center as well. Here I'm sewing a basting stitch on the waistline to keep the front pleats in their pressed position. I moved on to pinning the sides of the trousers right sides together. I also pinned the inside leg seam right sides together as well. For the left side seam, I placed a pin on the marking because I will be sewing below it. Once that was set, I sewed a straight stitch on the inner leg seam, and for all of these seams, I will be using a 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. On the left side of the trousers, I sewed a basting stitch above the needle marking. Here's where the zipper will be attached. And below the needle marking, I sewed a regular 2.5mm stitch to attach the rest of the pant leg. And for the right side, I sewed a 2.5mm stitch from top to bottom. After that, I pressed all of these seams open. Here, I'm placing one pant leg inside the other with right sides facing each other. Then I began to line up the markings on the crotch seam, and I used clips to hold the pant legs together. Following that, I sewed a straight stitch on this crotch seam. Sewing over the seams at the bottom was kind of difficult because it was a thick seam. And as I said earlier, you could just join the seam binding and this would be the time to do it. But I didn't do that, and if it really bothers me, I can do that in the future, but it's okay, it works out. After those steps, I pressed the crotch seam open. Hello there. This hair keeps standing up and it's annoying me. I actually cut my hair recently. You're probably like, we can tell, girl, but yeah, I had a moment there. My hair was soaking wet for 4 hours and I blow dried it and it still didn't want to get dry. So I went to the restroom and I cut it into this bob. I don't know what it is, but I feel free. My hair took only 2 hours to dry and now I feel better. So I just finished sewing the darts and the pant legs together and this is what it looks like so far. I'm deciding that this is a good stopping point because I want to clean up, feed and walk Zoey, and also play with her outside. But on that note, I'm gonna go ahead and clean up and get ready, but I will see y'all tomorrow to work on these trousers again. Good morning, it's day 4 of sewing, and yesterday I got pretty far on the pants. Now it's time to sew on the zipper, the waistband, and hem the bottoms. I did receive something in the mail yesterday that I can show you, so wait a minute. For this, I got some band roll. It's 2 inches in width because that's the width of the waistband in the pattern. And I also got some rayon binding. This is different from the linen seam binding. This will be used for the hemming portion. And for the zipper, I got a 7-inch brown zipper. So I'm ready to go. But yeah, with that being said, let's start finishing up these pants. You may notice my trousers are in a garment bag. This is from Total Wardrobe Care. I saw a moth once flying in the house, maybe because the door was open, but I let it out and everything, and then I began to spiral because I'm not about to spend 18 to 40 hours on a garment for the moth to eat it. So I bought garment bags and all that good stuff. But yeah, You miss me with that. You're not about to ruin my clothing. Like, why can't they do other stuff? No, they want to target the wool and the cashmere and the silk and linen, as if that's not super expensive. So yeah, this is for my sanity. Hello. So for this morning, I'm gonna put on some Aide Gourmet, and I'm really excited. I love her voice. It's so beautiful, and the instrumentals are really darling. So yeah, I'm gonna put it on right now. Now it's time to work on the waistband, and to prevent fraying, I used an overcast stitch on my sewing machine. Here I did film myself sewing the tailor's tacks. I may not be doing it right, but I'm just sewing 2 loops, then cutting the loop and excess thread off. I'm in a bit of a standstill here because I've been reading the instructions, watching videos on YouTube. Go YouTube University. And yeah, I don't know how I should attach this waistband because I don't want to follow the instructions. They're telling me to top stitch and to top stitch the belt loops as well. And I don't want that for my wool trousers. I feel like I see top stitching more on casual wear and maybe denim jeans, like that is the classic look. And yeah, I'll just follow the videos that I found online, and I'm gonna link them down below. We'll see how far we get. I'm just scared, to be honest. Sometimes this happens, but if you do one step, you roll into the other, and then you keep going. I'm gonna follow that and do it myself. So what's next? I did this. Now it's time to attach the band roll. And that's the thing, I swear. Because some people attach the belt loops with the waistband all in one go, but these instructions are saying attach the waistband and then the belt loops on top. I just feel like that's weird. There's gonna be levitating. They don't have that extra support of the waistband. So I don't know. I don't know about these instructions. I'm just, yeah. And then these images are so stylized. Like, can we show real humans? My goodness. Because, yeah, you can't really refer to it. Should have made some modern trousers. Oh my. Alright. I also didn't add the pocket. I know, I'm awful, but I don't normally use pockets. I leave things in them, I wash my clothes, and then they get ruined. So yeah, I use my purse as my pocket. I carry it everywhere I go. Enough stalling. I'm gonna make a decision. Either I add the belt loop within the waistband or on top of it. We'll see what I do. Okay, let's go. Okay, so here I tried to draw a bit of a diagram on how the belt loops would look. I'm using the information from the sewing pattern and the YouTube video that I will link down below. But I used my ruler, which is only in inches. I was going to buy a ruler in centimeters, but I completely forgot, and I'm already home and I don't want to go back out. But this, I used inches instead, and this is the width of the waistband. It's 1.5 inches. That's also the width of the band roll. I forgot to mention that. I think I said 2 inches earlier. Yeah, this is the belt loop here. I'm adding the 5/8 of an inch seam allowance because it will be tucked into the waistband, and then 2/8 of an inch below that belt strap, and another 3/8 of an inch up here as seam allowance so that I can fold it inward. But overall, that gives me 2 7/8 of an inch in length, and I like 3/8 of an inch in width, like just looking at it here. Are these numbers that they use? No, they're different measurements, but this isn't the 40, so I'm gonna do what I want. And we'll see how it comes out. This is probably not right, but I like it. It'll work. Here I'm cutting out fabric for the belt loop. It is 1 1/8 of an inch in width. Then I used an overcast stitch to finish the raw edges. I know I'm being extra, but I really care about those edges, okay? After that, I cut out 5 straps. Each strap measured out to be 2 7/8 of an inch in length. I actually needed to cut out 6 straps, so I am missing one, but I will soon figure that out, you'll see. Next, I cut out some lightweight interfacing for the belt strap. I do realize now that I should have interfaced the whole length of the strip of fabric and then cut them individually, But no, I didn't do that. I cut them separately and then I placed it on top of the wrong side of the fabric. This is a masterclass of working harder, not smarter. No, I'm joking, but seriously, I should have just done that beforehand. But I'm taking these mental notes so my order of operations in the future makes more sense and it eases the workload. Yeah, I don't really care about being efficient and super fast, but I also care about not wasting my time too. No, crafting, sewing is fun. Half of the time. I thought this was really funny because it reminded me of that one scene in SpongeBob where he's tucking the pickles and the cheese like it's a bed. I miss watching SpongeBob. But after that, I went ahead and pressed the interfacing in place. Next, I'm folding the belt strap inwards twice, and I start with one side and iron it down. Then I fold in the other side and ironed it down as well. And it ended up being 3/8 of an inch in width. Following that, I used a catch stitch to sew the edge of the belt strap in place. I also made sure not to sew through the front of the belt strap to keep the stitch invisible. Good morning, it's day 5 of sewing, and yesterday I finished up the belt straps and they came out really nice. I feel like I kind of hyperfixated on them, but something good came out of that, so it's okay. But for today, I'm going to be working on adding the zipper and also the waistband, I hope. And before I get started, I'm going to put on a record. I think I want to listen to ELO today. ELO, I know, it's not ELO, but it rolls off the tongue. But yeah, I really love ELO. I feel like I can't pinpoint what I like about them because they are so chaotic in a good way. Like their music has little blurps of galactic sounds. I don't know, it sounds like stars are flying through. It's weird, it really is, but I jam out to it so hard. Also, they're kind of harmonizing with each other. It feels like several people are talking and not really making sense, but it makes sense to me. So I'm gonna put it on and hopefully that will give me the energy that I need. On this day, I started to attach the zipper, and before I do that, I marked the zipper stopping point with chalk. After I pinned the zipper in place, I used a basting stitch to attach it temporarily. I do this because I don't like sewing zippers with pins. It makes it a little difficult. Some people can do it, but I cannot. And it also prevents some puckers for me. Then I turned the trousers right sides out, and I changed my presser foot to a zipper foot, and I sewed a straight stitch around the zipper. And I continued that straight stitch and back stitch to finish it off. Once that was done, I removed the basting stitches, and with that, the zipper is finally done. I'm a little bit upset right now. I was rereading the instructions because I was looking at my trousers and there are 6 spots for a belt strap and I only have 5. When I reread these instructions right now, it says make a belt strap, tells you all the measurements, blah blah blah. And then it says make 5 more straps in the same manner, which my fault, I didn't catch that. All I saw was 5 and I was like, okay, 5 straps. But no, it happens, you know, even though I wrote everything down, I still misread it. Like, why are you so confusing? But yeah, I finished complaining. Now it's time to get back to work. All right, I'm gonna put these back up and make my silly little belt strap. Here I'm making that last belt strap and it was mildly annoying taking everything out again, but it happens sometimes. I mess up and I'm happy I was able to catch it before I sewed the waistband on with the 5 straps instead. After that, I used an overcast stitch to finish the ends of the 6 belt straps. Then I put the belt straps in place with the right side of the belt strap facing the right side of the trousers. I'm also lining up the edges because I accounted for the 5/8 of an inch seam allowance earlier. And here I sewed the belt strap using a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. So this is how the interfacing is attached in the original instructions, but I will be doing it differently because I'm going to be using band roll instead. I also didn't know how to handle the pointed end of the waistband with the band roll, so I cut it off. Then I marked 5/8 of an inch seam allowance along one side of the waistband. I also did that for the ends of the waistband as well. Here I'm using the seam allowance as a guide and lining up the band roll close to those markings. Next, I used a zigzag stitch to sew the band roll onto the wrong side of the waistband's seam allowance. After that, I placed the right side of the waistband facing the right side of the trousers, making sure to line up the edges of the main fabric. Then I'm pinning right next to the band roll on the seam allowance line. And again, because I don't like to sew with pins at times, I sewed a basting stitch here. And once that was done, I sewed a straight stitch just to the left of the basting stitch. And this is what it looked like after I was done. After all of those steps, I removed the basting stitch. Hello there! I know I keep interrupting. I'm sorry. This is my first time making some trousers. I'm not a professional. And I'm learning what I should do along the way, and so I kind of skip around some steps, but bear with me. And so I have attached the waistband and the band roll here. What I was going to do previously is fold the seam allowance inwards and then fold the waistband in half and then hand sew here to finish it off. But now that I'm thinking about it, I want to use some linen seam binding on this edge and then fold it over. I'd like to match that seam with the other seams in the trouser as well. And so what I'll be doing now is adding the seam binding when that should have been added before I even sewed on the waistband, but like I said, I'm skipping around. All is well here. Just a little confused. Sorry. I am a little bit worried about the stitch in the ditch. Stitch in the ditch. My goodness, that is hard to say. I'm a little bit worried about that method because I don't have a stitch in the ditch presser foot. At least I don't think so. Let me see. What if I'm lying? No, I thought they sell that separately. They have a lot of presser foots for your machines, if you didn't know that. But they cost money. Haha, it's like $30. I'm not gonna do that right now. So maybe I'll do it by hand or really try my best with my machine. I don't trust myself, so that's a little bit nerve-wracking. I think that's why I was leaning towards the hand sewing method, but oh, okay, time to do the stitch in the ditch. See how that goes. Tengo miedo. Okay, let's continue sewing the garment. I moved on to sewing the seam binding on the free edge of the waistband. I used the same method I did on the side seams. After that, I pressed the waistband and seam allowance upwards. Here I'm facing the ends of the waistband right sides together, and I'm also folding the seam allowance up at an angle. This is so the seam binding will pop out gradually. Then I sew a straight stitch following the edge of the zipper. I cut off the excess seam allowance after that, and I also snipped the corner at an angle. I repeated this step on the other side of the waistband. This is on the back side of the trousers. The only difference is that this edge jots out a bit and it's not flushed against the zipper's edge. Good morning, it's day 6 of sewing, and yesterday I was adding the waistband to the pants, and now what I need to do is the stitch in the ditch so that they are connected. But on that note, what I'm going to do is continue that waistband process and then move on to the closure on the side and also hemming the pants. But we'll see how far I get because I am taking a long time. I mean, I'm in no rush and this is a hobby and a passion of mine, so I'm gonna take my time, but just gotta keep trucking along. So on that note, let's continue to sew. I picked up where I left off and I turned the waistband right sides out. As I'm doing this, I used a pointed wooden tool, I don't know what it's called, to get those corners to push out well. Then I moved on to pinning the free edge of the waistband down in place. I'm following the seam line and this is how it turned out. Here I'm sewing a basting stitch. I'd rather the fabric not shift around as I sew it down by machine. I'm also sewing this basting stitch 1/8 of an inch away from the seam line because I will be sewing on that line. Following that, I sewed a straight stitch within the seam. This is called a stitch in the ditch, which I get it. It's like a little ditch there, but yeah, I think I'm doing it right. At the very end, I used my hand turn wheel because the fabric was pretty thick here. That's where the seam binding was folding inwards. And once that was done, I removed the basting stitch. The back edge of the waistband was not sewn during this process, so to secure this down, I'm going to sew a slip stitch here. Next, I sewed a straight stitch on the belt straps 2/8 of an inch below the waistline seam. Then I folded the belt straps upwards, and for the 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, I folded that inwards at the top edge. To sew the top edges of the belt straps, I'm using a back stitch. The stitch was really hard to do, but I wanted no top stitching. I don't know if I would recommend this, but if it's not sturdy enough, I can always top stitch on this edge later on. Now it's time to add the hook and bar closure. For the hook, I used a buttonhole stitch where I go into the loop before pulling the rest of the thread away. Then I'm using a pin here to mark where the bar will be sewn on. After that, I sewed the bar in place using a button stitch. I made sure to tie the thread off and snip the excess thread away. Next, I'm hemming the trousers. I'm starting off with sewing an overcast stitch to the bottom of the pant legs to prevent fraying. Here's where I'll be adding the rayon binding. First, I attach the rayon binding to the bottom of the pant legs, leaving about 1/4 of an inch free. Then I'm sewing a straight stitch 1/8 of an inch away from the edge of the rayon binding. Following that, I pressed the hem upwards 1 1/4 of an inch and I pinned it in place. Lastly, I sew a slip stitch and I grab one thread of the main fabric and also a small bite of the rayon binding as I'm sewing. And of course, we cannot forget the crease on the pant legs. For this, I lined up the inner and outer leg seams and I used a pressing cloth with some steam. After that last step, the trousers are finally done and now it's time for the reveal. Hello there! We finally made it to the end of the video and now it's time for the wrap-up portion. So for the trousers, I really love how they came out. I think they look gorgeous and stunning. I feel like I put a lot of effort into them, such as basting a few steps and also ironing a lot. I don't even want to look at my iron. It's in the shame corner over there. And it's not that you have to do all of those things in order to make yourself a pair of trousers, especially because it takes a lot of time and it's also very labor intensive. Even though I'm not a professional, I still took the time to do all of those steps and I'm not very time efficient either. But I did want to show you all everything because there is a place for us home sewers. You know, I love to make my own clothing and I don't know if I will ever study fashion or make clothing professionally, but I love it and it makes me happy. It's my little hobby here. Anyways, I'm talking too much. I'm gonna bring it back to the trousers. But I really love this fabric as well. The color is so rich and perfect. And the fabric is very flowy, but also has some weight to it at the bottom, which I really love. Also, I did want to let y'all know that the fabric is sold out already. I'm sorry. It was dead stock and there wasn't that much left anyways to begin with. But I am going to put down in the description box some more information about this fabric, like the weight and such, because I don't know it and I need to look it up right now. Overall, I'm really happy with these trousers and I'm excited to wear them to school. During lab, they require you to wear pants, and I've only worn 2 pairs of pants throughout my first 2 years, so it's nice to have another pair so that I can wear them during those lab classes. And I think they're really nice too to wear going out, you know, for a little coffee. I don't know, I don't drink, but yeah. And before I end the video, I want to say thank you so much for watching and I hope you have a beautiful day. I will see you on the next one. Bye!